Good morning. Good morning. Mr. Green, would you like to introduce some guests that we have here? You're in a real good spot to see the sausage. If you'll listen real closely to those people over there on the wall, you'll wonder why we're in the shape we're in. We welcome you here, particularly the mayor. All mayors are wonderful human beings.
That's true.
If y'all would, please bow with me. Again, Father, we come asking you to forgive us of our sins, to say thank you for the wonderful day, particularly the lightning. Let us have a good day. Let us do things that please you. Let us use our brains a little bit. Lead, guide, and direct us. Keep your hand on us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. And I'll tell the wall, since they're the people that are going to get the room as soon as we get through, and they're all itching just to get back down here in these seats so they can talk whatever Albany stuff is. Albany, excuse me. Chairman to the front, Mr. Jaspers. And do not take as long as you did yesterday. I don't know about, and y'all forgive me, but somewhere in that conversation yesterday, it's about, tell us what your bill's about, sir. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in honor of Veterinarians Day here at the Capitol, I bring before you House Bill 800. It's a bill that will update the code to the current definition of veterinary-client relationship. It's now taken into account how veterinarians practice medicine on a flock or herd basis in animal agriculture. Thank you. Any questions?
Did you do another bill, something about, have you got one on the agenda today?
No, sir, I do not. It's up to you. I mean, be glad to.
I thought you were going to talk about some kind of diseases that were
I believe you'll have the opportunity for us to discuss that in the near future.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Jaspers? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, committee.
Mr. Kirby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring to you today House Bill 697. This is a bill to help our senior citizens and all of our citizens to protect them from being billed for unsolicited merchandise, and requires them to have an affirmative assent before they agree to purchase something and be billed for it. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Buckner, where have you been? You came up yesterday and I didn't see you.
Well, I'm delighted to be here today. And it was a perfect day for this bill because of all the rain. It's House Bill 483. It's the fourth one under modified rule, modified open rule. And this is a bill about the shoal bass. And what we are trying to do is establish it as the state of Georgia's native riverine sport fish. We have a lot of people that come to Georgia to actually have the opportunity to fish for this, and it'll be an economic development tourism help for our area if we could have this designated in a special way. And it's found in the Flint, the Ocmulgee, and in the Chattahoochee rivers.
So y'all don't have trout?
No, sir, we don't.
Is a trout a state fish? Huh?
Largemouth
We
bass.
don't have a trout name for anything? Dadgum, there's a bill for one of y'all. I'm getting from the peanut gallery. I'll take care of it, Mr. Chairman. Down there, the game fish guy. David, you're not going to jump in and say something? Okay, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Ms. Clark.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring for your consideration House Bill 588. It's on page 1 under modified structure, fourth from the top. This bill offers an electronic logging system, the same that is now offered in our big boxed pharmacies. It offers it to independent pharmacists and our grocery store pharmacists. It will be the same system, the same information is required, and our pharmacy questions have been answered. They're very concerned about a fee, a transaction fee, and they have committed that there will be no transaction fee, and we will put that in the bill on the Senate side.
Mr. Stevens, any questions? You okay? Anybody else? No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, you have before you House Bill 737 under modified structure. I am the chairman of the Joint Committee of the House and Senate of Code Commission, and so it falls to me to bring the workup of corrections for the code from the last year. This is the annual modification bill to put all the I's, dot all the I's, cross all the T's, remove commas, put in commas. And I know that you're also going to see, and I've already had questions on it both in committee and before we started today, starting on page 9 through the top of page 11, there's something about MARTA, and it is underlined, and you think that is new law. It is not. Unbeknownst to me and you, this is MARTA law already, but it has never been codified and put in the code. If you wanted to look it up, you had to go to the Georgia laws. It was not in our code, and the Wayne Allen, of course, of Legislative Council said, we didn't realize it, and it's about time that we put it in the code where it's supposed to be. So that's all that it is, and this is just a cleanup bill for code revision.
Does the Ways and Means chairman realize that he's about to be on the Martot board? When did he realize that? This morning or yesterday? Camilla and the Martot board. Okay. Any questions? Ms. Jones, you had yours?
So the composition of the MARTA of that board,
The 14 members
has not changed one bit.
No, ma'am, nothing has changed. This has just never been put in the Georgia code.
Thank you.
No more questions. No, wait a second.
That completes my work, Mr. Chairman.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Knight.
I mean, I'm serious. That's a very, I'm
Our
curious.
law, actually, if you want to know what the real law is, you go to the Georgia laws. You know, you've seen these great big books that come out every year, and that's literally each bill. That actually is the Georgia law. We then take that with the Code Commission and modify it into words that hopefully we can all understand in paragraphs, and that goes in the Georgia Code. But the real law is the books you see. It says every year, Georgia laws, 2016, 2013. And then that's taken and put in the code, and it's also put in with the annotations so you can follow it. But it's never been put in the code.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does that mean everything they've done in the past is got to be start again?
No, sir.
No more questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Light, and this is Ms. Light's second time here. Y'all were relatively easier on her. I found out that she knew more about the bill than y'all could make up about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the opportunity to present Bill HB 780. It is number 13 on page 1. I'm hoping for your favorable consideration of this bill. It is written to clarify the definitions portion of a Georgia code so that a distinction is made between a diagnostic clinical laboratory and a non-diagnostic laboratory. Thank you very much.
Any questions? See, they're letting you off easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Ms. Quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I bring you HB 405, which is number 3 from the top on the modified open rule on your list. This bill would define antenuptial agreements, also known as prenups, which currently are not defined in the code. It also would modernize certain provisions in the Domestic Relations Code and require that prenuptial agreements to be enforced be in writing and with 2 witnesses, one of whom shall be a notary. This is part of the State Bar of Georgia legislative package for 2016. And Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any additional questions that members might have about it.
Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this to say that prenups don't need to be in writing now?
That's a great question. There is an exception in the statute of frauds right now for marriage articles. So to the extent you could persuade a judge that what you had signed was, or what you had agreed to was a marriage article, the way it is defined in this antiquated code section, then no, sir, you could actually make that argument.
Thank you.
No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have 2 bills to present to you today. The first is HB 228 regarding sheriff's fees. This bill updates the 2014 passed forfeiture bill and codifies into law that county sheriffs in counties where sheriff is paid on salary only, that fees collected by the sheriff's department must be remitted to the county's fiscal office within 30 days of receipt. Any questions?
No questions. Next one.
The next bill I present today is HB 219, which deals with private property rights issues, regarding how private property pools are controlled or not controlled by the Department of Health. What this bill does is it adds condominiums to the current list of private pools, which currently includes, among others, townhouses and timeshares, for which the State Department of Health has no jurisdiction for pool safety or water quality. What this does is it allows for condo pools that are currently also under county health. Let me back up. In the state of Georgia, pools are regulated by county either by the State Department of Health or by local county health code. So there are different manners by which pools in the state of Georgia are managed. So this allows that condo pools in those counties that are regulated by the local or county health department to opt out of control by the county health department. In doing so, what that does in essence is that redefines that condo pool as a private pool and therefore comes under State Department of Health control. And under State Department of Health control, as I mentioned a moment ago, a condo would be determined to be a private pool and therefore not under state control. I want to mention too that this bill has the full support of Chairman Pruitt, the Realtors Association, and the Apartments Association. The Department of Health was involved in every meeting we had on this bill and was given full opportunity to have input on the final construct of this bill. At the final hearing, committee hearing, DPH actually had no objections that were brought forth before the committee. So I would accept that as DPH's acceptance of the bill as presented. I want to make it's very important to know that this bill has no effect on apartments and how they are managed and regulated in the state, either by current state DPH or county health DPH. One other caveat, or one other actually benefit or bonus that came out of this, is that we actually strengthened the construction pool code so that all pools throughout the state in their construction phase must meet either state or local construction code. There was a little loophole in there that we discovered, and we've closed that loophole. Stand for any questions.
You didn't hear that part about being brief, did you? Ms. Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, thank you for your explanation. But I did not hear you say what effect this will have on safety of residents and people who are actually going to use the pool.
Thank you for that question. We've actually added into the code that pools that are determined as private, whether they be the addition of condos or those pools that are currently defined as private, that an individual within that complex can contact the DPH and request a pool safety review of that pool. The caveat there is that in doing so, DPH will not penalize or fine the pool property owners. The report by law goes to the requestor and to the property owner or POA board. The thinking is that by written notification of issues, if indeed there are any found, that the property owner's POA board will now have been put on notice of potential liability issues, and they will move and act to resolve those problems.
Carl, are you wore out, son? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Jones, let me make sure I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to shift it from the Department of Health to the local health department. Is that what you're trying to do?
No, sir. No, sir. This is a very confusing pool bill.
It sure is.
It is. Ask Chairman Pruitt. He will vouch for that. In the state of Georgia, pools are currently regulated in the blue by the state, in the white by local county DPH. We are making no changes to who has jurisdiction over pools by county. The bill makes no changes to that. The simple answer to your question is we are adding condominiums to the list of pools that are currently defined as private, such as townhomes and town shares, that by current code are not regulated by state DPH.
Further question, Mr. Chairman. How many pools are there in the state of Georgia?
A bunch. I don't have one. A bunch.
Okay, thank you.
There ain't going to be any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Mr. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you HB 538. It's at the top of the page under open rule. This is the dog bite bill that would allow for the treating physician of a dog bite victim to request in writing the vaccination history of the dog in question. And it has been vetted by the Georgia Veterinarians Association, the Department of Agriculture, and our state veterinarian, Dr. Cobb. I'll answer any questions.
Mr. Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the gentleman in the well, what sort of privacy right would an owner of a dog or a dog have in its own veterinarian records?
Well, currently, just to clarify the question to make sure I answer it properly, are you asking if the dog has privacy rights or the owner?
Yes, to both.
Currently under code, both the owner and the dog have medical privacy protections in place. This is allowing for an exception for a specific example.
Does this bill repeal both of those rights?
It does not repeal the right, if you will. It does allow for a specific exemption for when there's a bite and the treating physician of the victim of that bite would request for the vaccination records.
Thank you.
No.
If we get this to the floor, the humor value has got to be worth something, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I can't wait for everybody to see us discuss this one. No more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'd ask for favorable consideration.
Ms. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask for House Bill 649 again. That's the Lactation Consultant Practice Act.
I appreciate the promotion to Speaker. I don't want the job.
Sorry.
Send that message to David. Johnny is not trying. Any questions, Ms. Cooper, on the Lactation Act? Mr. Powell. Wait a second. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I respectfully asked for HB 767. There's an amendment on the desk that does some further cleaning up on this that was due to some latter data. Be glad to explain the bill and the amendment. It's become quite popular over recent years that we've passed laws on the rules of the road about traffic slowing down when they come upon a vehicle on the side of the road. Years ago, the first one was emergency vehicles and law enforcement. Then a few years later, it was added to it, tow truck operators. Last year, it was added on about garbage trucks that were on the sides of the road to tell people to slow down. And this has come to you, this is being brought by a consortium of our business community, the folks in the utility business, the power companies, the telephone companies, and those people. And we've also included utilities like gas, the gas people that work on gas lines. The reason for the amendment was in the original legislation in a different code section. It had up to a $500 fine for passing emergency and police vehicles without moving over or slowing down. The one last year on garbage trucks lowered it to $250, no more than a $250 fine. And what we've done is in this amendment we have specified that law enforcement vehicles and emergency vehicles, that fine would stay at no more than $500, but in the case of these it would be no more than $250. The reason that we moved by striking sanitation out was so that we didn't accidentally move them back into another code section.
Any questions?
That's a mouthful.
Do the other bill. You got another one?
No, sir.
Well, wait a second.
I have another one, but I'm going to wait. There's a Senate bill just like it that's already over here, and I'm going to save this chip and let the senator ask for his bill.
I was going to put it on tomorrow if you asked for it.
Well, then I'll ask for it.
Ask for it.
I believe that's I believe that House Bill 730. Very simple bill brought to you by some of the department heads. It's going to, in the post council that governs the rules and regulations of our post-certified officers, it adds the commissioner of juvenile justice, since they have a number of post-certified officers to that council, as well as the commissioner of natural resources because of the DNR rangers. So all that does, just adds those two, raises the board to from 20 to 22, and it puts those two representatives from those two very, very worthwhile agencies on there.
I'm sure your bill's a whole lot better than the one that's just like it in the Senate.
I have no doubt, because it's a House bill, even though it's identical to the Senate bill. This one will probably have a lot better flavor.
We might pass yours. Okay. Mr. Rogers.
Asking for House Bill 747, which is nothing but a public safety bill, it's an agency bill. It's cleanup of the annual motor carrier bill of the Georgia Department of Public Safety. It just simply ensures that the Department of Public Safety can continually continue to effectively prosecute unsafe commercial vehicle drivers, remove unsafe vehicles from the roads. And all this bill does is just change one little thing, and that Section 1, Line 13 changes the effective date from January 1st, 2015 to January 1st, 2016.
Since it's just that small of a change, I'm not going to count it on the 125 count. Okay, anybody want to? Mr. Earhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was checking. It looks like House Bill 775 that you had an interest in didn't make it to the general calendar from the committee secretary yesterday.
Keith wouldn't let me put it on. It's going to be on Mondays.
Just checking.
I had trouble signing your name. I signed mine. Anybody want to speak to any bill? Okay. We'll set the calendar then. This is for tomorrow, Thursday, February the 4th. Under modified open, HB 593. Y'all do remember that one of you's got to say something occasionally. Any objection to 593? All right, it's under modified open in its own. Under modified open, HB 730. Any objection? All right, its own. Under modified open, HB 747. Any objection? Its own. Under modified structure, HB 228. Any objection? Its own. Under modified open, HB 800. Any objection? That's it. Have a good one. See you in the morning.